For this webinar, we're really trying to avoid this being sort of a sales pitch. I'll share a little bit about our tools for identifying ways to improve equipment availability and performance, but I'd really like to communicate what I've learned and what we at Sepasoft have learned from working with people who are all along the spectrum of digital transformation. What enabled not just successful automation and ignition projects, but real improvements on the plant floor. And I thought it only fitting to start with uh, a definition of what OEE actually is. Um, it consists of what are generally called the three factors of OEE, which are as follows. Availability is, roughly speaking, the amount of time your line or machine or area or site, etc., spends in a running state compared to total time spent in production. It's expressed as a percentage, as are all of these, in fact. So if in a 5-hour production run, your line spends a half hour in an unplanned downtime state, your availability score will be something like 90%. Performance, on the other hand, is parts started divided by ideal parts started over a period of time. So if over the course of an hour you start 85 parts, when you hoped to have started 100, your performance is 85%. Finally, quality is good parts divided by total parts started. So if over the course of an hour you reject 4 out of 100 pieces started and produce 96, your score is 96%. And after all of that, you multiply those three percentages together to get your OE score. So if your availability is 90%, your performance is 85, and your quality is 96%, as in our simple examples here, your OEE would calculate out to 73.4%. Now that value, that 73.4%, is an all-encompassing value that represents a real view of how well your equipment or line or whatever are performing. And what's great about that value is that as you make any improvements in your plant, reduce the occurrence of machine fault, minimize rejects, accelerate production, your OEE climbs in turn. And so it becomes a measuring stick for almost anything you do in your plant to increase performance. So the first question I like to ask is, will you benefit from OEE? So at Sepasoft, I have the pleasure of working with a ton of folks who are considering ways to help their machine, line, plant, enterprise accelerate to the next level. Now, we make software aimed at helping folks take those next steps. When I speak with people at all levels of those organizations, I've asked them questions that are really trying to understand why they've reached out to inductive automation or to Sepasoft regarding downtime analysis or KPIs or what have you. And when I say, will you benefit from OE, I don't mean necessarily from our software in particular, but will you benefit from doing the legwork required to calculate your OE score? From those experiences, I've pulled out these questions that seem to be a common through point. So number one, do you sell everything you produce, or is your line producing goods that are ending up in your warehouse, right? Are you producing for sale or are you producing for inventory? Are orders always filled on time without fail? Do you know your top reasons for machine and line downtime, or are you kind of winging that? Is overtime required frequently to meet your commitments? Do you need to increase your profit and your profitability and revenue? Do you need to improve your capacity? Are you sitting on a lot of unused inventory? It should be pretty clear, but if you answered no for any of 1 through 3, or yes for any of 4 through 7, you might really benefit from determining your OE score and understanding your line availability, your performance, your product quality. Uh, uh, these questions are the ones that are going to guide you towards implementing OEE and trying to get a sense of what's happening there. So to add a little more fuel to the fire, I wanted to share a sense of what others have been able to achieve by implementing the OEE at their plants and in their enterprise. These are pulled from a few case studies on our site, or maybe they're on inductive site, they're in some webinars, and they're also in articles in control engineering and automation world. So these are publicly available information. Most of these are. The first one, a major chemicals manufacturer was notably able to reduce its work week from 7 days to 5. Now, how were they able to do that? Well, they used the OEE tools and the knowledge and insight gathered from OEE to increase their efficiency such that they were doing in 4 or 5 days what they previously took all week to achieve. And so instead of running for 7 days at that higher efficiency, they chose to run at 5 days, so they could give their employees a weekend, increase employee morale, all those good things that come from having a weekend. We love our weekends. Swedish Match Tobacco, they described they were able to get real-time information and visibility, that the solution and the process of gathering their OE score exceeded their expectations. They were able to increase their schedule rate by 12.5%. Now, what that means is that a production order or a schedule that would have taken them an hour now happens 12.5% faster. They were able to reliably and continuously produce goods more rapidly and more accurately, such they were able to increase that by 12.5%. Pretty cool. Hunter Industries, they make at least my sprinkler automation system at my house. They saw $300,000 in savings in 2019 alone. And they described that they saw an 8% increase in OEE across all their buildings. Now, you can see here how Hunter is using OEE as that metric, just like we described. So, they were able to see that huge improvement, 8% increase in OE. That's a big deal. A very recent webinar we were able to perform in tandem with Chris McLaughlin over at Vertec was for Arizona Beverages. And Arizona described that they were empowered to keep their 23-ounce can product at a 99% price point. That was their goal that they put in place in order to evaluate whether their OEE project was successful. Are we going to be able to keep our famous 23-ounce bullet can of tea or juice at that really affordable price point? And they felt that they were able to at the end of that process. That article is in control engineering. You should look that one up. It's a good one. Daimler Trucks, they felt that they were empowered to optimize their operations and to benchmark and compare production volumes in real time. So they were given that real-time visibility. And then Samtech, we have a case study with them. They use the OE module to monitor their rate of gold consumption on a daily basis, line by line, operator by operator, partner by part number, and they saw massive reduction in their gold usage. So they make connectors for computer parts and those heavily used gold for its various qualities, and they were able to very much reduce their waste and their usage by implementing OEE and our OEE module. Now, this is what people have actually been able to achieve by understanding the things that OEE can teach us. OEE helps us understand what equipment is failing, why it's failing, sources of waste, which lines are hitting their ideal rates and which are not, and much more. These particular folks, they did use our OEE module, but we've only picked these due to I've picked these due to my personal familiarity with these companies and their results. I'm confident that a well-organized effort to implement OEE with any of a variety of tools will enable similar results, but we're obviously proud of the tools that we've built for this purpose.